Hello and welcome to my show, Could You Be More Specific? I am your host, Jonathan Steele, coming to you by the way of the Stay Woke podcast. And on this episode of Could You Be More Specific, I'm going to title it Olympus Has Fallen. And the reason why I'm giving this title is because obviously this recent week with everything that's been happening with the Trump administration, and it's just so much to kind of touch on with that. I'm also going to touch on McCain and his unfortunate passing. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the Trump news. And I know this week has been a really kind of crazy week, especially politically, because Paul Manafort ended up being found guilty on 8 counts on a combination of fraud, and I know it was also related to payoffs that the Trump campaign was involved in. I know Michael Cohen also ended up taking a deal as well. And I know some reports said that he could possibly be looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 years. And then that's not even the icing on that. It's also his money man. I know that guy's name is, I believe, Grumwald. He is asked for immunity. He's been the family lawyer now since the previous Trump, in terms of his father. So it's a lot of stuff going on this week in regards to that. I guess I'm going to start with one of the things I knew going into around the time that Trump got elected was that between his university being under investigation at the time and some of the other business dealings that he had where he failed to pay contractors and also was under accusations in terms of some of the complaints that his employees had faced that also at Trump Tower, you kind of knew this was coming eventually. You didn't know when. And like a lot of things, these things take time. I know a lot of people are kind of like excited to be talking about impeachment, which obviously that's on the table. And that's not, something that's like, overreacting to it. It's like, right now the state of New York is thinking about pressing charges against him. Because in order for that guy to get immunity, that means he has to be given the state of New York and the DA damning evidence against the Trump organization and some of the money issues that they've had and some of the fraudulent behavior that they've exhibited. Because in order for all that to kind of come together, he had to promise that. So that alone kind of lets you know that things are going to continue to unravel for him. And that's not even mentioning Jeff Sessions and all the turmoil that's going on between Trump and Sessions on that. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize, yes, the president picks the attorney general, but the attorney general is not promised to protect the president. The attorney general is to uphold the rule of law. It's no different than the president when it comes to upholding federal law. So, for an example, Obama did deport more people under his presidency than, say, Bush did at the time. Because under the federal law, if they are finding people who are here illegally, they have to do that. Even though he signed a 2-year thing to extend visas, he did a lot of his did as much as he could under his executive power that he could to try and help extend those things. He still has to uphold the rule of law because he represents the federal government. And the only way things can actually change from that is if it's done legislatively. So that's just an example to kind of show you what the differences are and some of the positions that a president and an attorney general are asked to do. So when you see Trump earlier on Fox News this week talking about, hey, why did he recuse himself in regards to Russia? Well, why wouldn't he do that? If he knows that he's knowingly involved in this process, why would he open himself up to be under that kind of microscope where he's not going to be jeopardizing his political career? I mean, I lived in Alabama, so I already knew what Jeff Sessions was about. He's not anything new. He is what he's advertised to be. So it's not shocking to hear the news about him just in general. But you kind of knew all this stuff was coming with Trump during the campaign. I guess now the question is between Manafort being guilty, the question about could Trump pardon him. And the trouble with that would be is because he's facing state charges as well. The state of New York, that could possibly be nullified by that. So the president can't just pardon him, because if they're both directly linked in a crime that happened in New York, and then charges and a deal is filed against them by the state of New York, I just don't know how a pardon would be able to stand if the person that's giving you the pardon is also implicated in the crime. But hey, look, stranger things have always happened in this country, so I wouldn't jump too quickly on that. Michael Cohen was kind of interesting, because I know campaign finance for the violations. I mean, that I would have thought that would have been something he probably could have got past a little bit more. But then if you look at the fact that he has paid off, multiple women, if that was done with campaign money, which that's what some of the reports is implying, he is in a lot of trouble. But Michael Cohen, who also, is a part of that, being his attorney, obviously has access to information that would imply that he was aware of a lot of the shady dealings that the president was going through. And also the Trump family lawyer, who was for the father as well. So people have access to your accounting books, and they know where your money's going, how it's being transferred, and all your transactions. Some of the other financial behaviors that you've shown, it's not going to be hard for them to kind of track it. I guess now the question will be with the Russia element. By that, if that's proven under the Mueller investigation that it was verified, they interfered to lose the election for Hillary Clinton, and would the Supreme Court then be asked to then rule in favor of in Hillary Clinton being made president for this term, which is very possible that could happen. Because if it's proven that she was cheated out of the election, then therefore she's president. And she did win the popular vote. She just didn't win the electoral college, which that's another thing that they'll never do away with that. It's the only way Southern and Midwest states still stand a chance. Even though Illinois, Connecticut, New York, and California pays for most of this country, the fact that a lot of the votes in a lot of ways that our country's ran is still being held up by states that sometimes have less than 1 million people in it. I'm sorry, nothing against Wyoming or Montana, but if you're not really paying the majority of the country's taxes to keep you guys afloat, then I think California and New York should have more say on how things run in the country, because they're spending more money to fund the country. But it's a lot of stuff to kind of unpack moving forward. I'll probably definitely touch on that again, because just this week alone, it's so much more information to kind of unpack and go through that I wouldn't have time to really cover in this show. But I'm going to transition from that, and I want to touch on John McCain. And I knew he was having brain cancer, and, he's been through a lot. It's very unfortunate. I know he's lived a really long life. I know one of his most memorable moments for people is the 2008 election, when he kind of knew then, and I saw an interview not too long ago talking about how he knew that this era of politics was kind of coming, where it's going to become personal. It wasn't going to no longer just be about talking about the issues and some of the things that, was encountered on the campaign that was directed towards Obama, with this kind of current climate, especially with the Trump voter. They really began around the time of the election with McCain and Obama, and when it was becoming more of a populist thing, to kind of start attacking then candidate Obama based off of racially, his religious background, and it became not about his policies. It became about him as a person. And you can just really make up stuff. It doesn't have to be true. But the way he handled himself about as well as you possibly could while you're still trying to run and win a campaign. It's unfortunate over the past, handful of years, especially with Trump's recent presidency, just this dismissive attitude that, a lot of people have had for him, and especially in regards to Trump and the Republican Party. This is a really a sad time, because it's like you would have thought like that would have been a time for you guys to kind of really unite and really be like, hey, listen, you can talk about him policy wise and not agreeing with him. That's fine. But when you call him, some of the stuff that Trump was calling John McCain, it was like talking about who would want to root for a guy who gets captured. It's like, who talks like that? Especially a guy that's never been involved in any form of combat. He would actually say that. And he really didn't have that many people defend him that was on his team. And it's unfortunate because, hey, listen, McCain's been attacked before. He was attacked by, the Bush campaign when they were running. He was running to get the nomination back in 2000. When that was a really rough campaign for him because they were real good friends and it turned personal there. So it's just sometimes, the way you run your campaign is kind of a reflection of who you are. And I know Bush, in hindsight, I know they said it kind of regret that he did that to him because he just wanted to win a nomination, but that was kind of telling at that moment. Same thing with how it's kind of telling at this moment with Trump. I'm really hopeful that, his family is going to be able to be maintained and be strong throughout this time. Obviously, it's going to be rough considering just the life that he's had and what he meant to his family. I hope moving forward, this will kind of change, try and change the dynamic, especially with politics, especially in their party. But, it's a really sad day. John McCain had a mind of his own for the most part. I definitely didn't agree with him on every policy decision that he had or was advocating for. But, I never really thought like he was coming from a place where it was meant to be mean-spirited. I never got that from him. Me and him may not have seen life the same way, but I never picked that up from him. Those are just some of the thoughts that I had on John McCain, and hopefully moving forward, this will be something that can kind of bring both parties together and they can kind of expand and kind of build off this. Obviously, the things going on with Trump right now is just going to continue to get more out of control and worse. So you definitely got to stay on the look for that. I want to thank everyone that's been listening to the show. Thank you to all you guys who've been supporting us. Definitely continue to like, share, follow, support us, become a patron. I want to thank D and all the work that he's been putting in on all these shows. Definitely follow and check him out. He's continuing uploading really great content. So definitely go and check him out. Again, my name is Jonathan Steele. Thank you for listening. Could you be more specific? I'm looking forward to doing more of these again real soon. Looking to do more content. And I hope you guys have a good day.